The DJI Action 4 is here, a little earlier than expected, but probably DJI just wanted to get ahead of GoPro this year. But was the short year enough to significantly improve this action camera once again? And maybe even justify an upgrade from the Action 3? To find out, today there is an in-depth comparison to the Action 3 and the GoPro Hero 11. There are 20 categories, 2 points for the winner of a category and 1 point for a second place. An important information at the beginning: I bought all 3 cameras with my own money, and all statements in this video are according to my very personal opinion. And if you are interested in buying one of these 3 cameras, you should take a close look at all categories, because there are many important differences, and not only in image quality. As you could already see, the body of the Action 4 is not different at all from the body of the Action 3. DJI simply took the body of the camera from last year and basically installed a new, larger sensor. The Action 3 and Action 4 are slightly smaller and lighter than the Hero 11. The difference isn't huge, but it is there and noticeable. Therefore, this category goes to the Action 3 and Action 4. However, since the difference is only slight, there is only 1 point each for the 2 cameras from DJI. An action camera should of course be rugged and resistant. The biggest weakness of all 3 cameras in this context is certainly the back display. If one of the 3 cameras falls down and hits unhappily, the display can break. DJI includes a frame in the packaging, and this frame actually improves the protection of the camera. You don't have to use it, but the back of the camera is a little better protected by the protruding edge of the frame. However, the frame also makes the Action 4 and Action 3 noticeably larger and heavier, and since I've already awarded 1 point for portability, it would be inconsistent to give the Action 3 and 4 another point advantage in this category. So 1 point for all 3 cameras. The Action 3 and Action 4 have a magnetic mounting system, and this magnetic mount has a very significant advantage. The camera can be quickly, easily and simply removed from one mount and attached to another. For example, you can easily attach the camera to a helmet or remove it again while wearing the helmet. This is even possible with one hand. The magnetic mount is compatible with all GoPro mounts and absolutely stable. And for me, one of the very big advantages of the Action 3 and 4. 2 points for the Action 4 and Action 3, 1 point for the GoPro. All 3 cameras have a back display and a front display. The displays are comparable in size. On the GoPro, however, only the back display is a touch display, and depending on where you mount your camera, that can be a major drawback. I also think that the display on DJI's 2 cameras is a bit more responsive. So this category also goes to the Action 3 and Action 4 with 2 points each. And 1 point for the GoPro. Of course, all 3 cameras are waterproof, but in this regard, there is finally a small innovation from DJI. The Action 4, unlike the Action 3, is waterproof up to 18 meters. The Action 3, on the other hand, is waterproof up to 15 meters. However, the standard diving certificate open water stipulates a maximum depth of 18 meters. For divers, this improvement can therefore definitely be an advantage. The Hero 11, on the other hand, is only water resistant up to 10 meters. 2 points to the Action 4 and 1 point to the Action 3. All 3 cameras are simple and easy to use. Over the years, I've gained a bit more experience with GoPro. However, I have to admit that DJI's cameras are similarly easy to use. The menu of the Action 4 has also hardly changed compared to the Action 3. A few new features have been added compared to the Action 3, but the operation of the 2 cameras is identical. All 3 cameras can of course be fully controlled via the smartphone app. And this has always worked well in my tests. The font size of the DJI app is a bit small for my taste. Both apps also have the option to create an automatic edit. I have to admit though that I rarely use the feature and I struggle to see a clear winner here. 1 point for all 3 cameras. The next categories all focus on image quality. And it's here that DJI wants to score points with the new Action 4 and its larger sensor. At 1/1.3 inch, the Action 4 sensor is significantly larger than the Hero 11's 1/1.9 inch sensor. Sensor size is not everything when it comes to image quality, but definitely a very important aspect. So does the Action 4's image really look significantly better? Before we take a closer look at the image quality categories, I think it would be a good idea for you to take a look at these comparison shots with an open mind and form your own initial opinion, because everything I'm about to tell you has also to do with taste, of course. A very important aspect of the image of an action camera is the field of view. It should be as wide as possible to create the most immersive look possible. And little has changed in this regard. The field of view of the Action 4 is more or less the same of that of the Action 3. And that's a good thing, because the Action 3 already has an extremely wide field of view. It is visibly wider than that of the Hero11, especially vertically. It is interesting to note that the field of view has become somewhat smaller in the ultra-wide setting compared to the Action 3. In return, it has less distortion. Nevertheless, ultra-wide on the Action 4 is still wider than super view and even hyper view on the Hero11. Hyperview is only slightly larger vertically. The biggest difference to the Hero11, however, can be found in the comparison between D-warp and linear. With D-warp and linear, the distortions of the fisheye lens are largely removed, and D-warp on the Action 3 and 4 is significantly wider than linear on the Hero11. While the GoPro's field of view is not as wide as the Action 4's, the GoPro offers a very unique aspect ratio of 8:7. With this nearly square format, you can take footage that you can then use relatively well vertically for social media. It depends on your personal use if that's important to you. Personally, I prefer the extremely wide field of view of the DJI Action 3 and 4 for an action camera. The Action 3 and the Action 4 get 2 points, the GoPro 1 point. Perhaps the most important category in this comparison concerns color and contrast. And here things have changed quite a bit. DJI has greatly revised the colors and contrast. The images of the Action 4 are no longer as saturated and also have slightly less contrast than the images of the Action 3. As a result, the shots of the Action 4 look much more natural. In terms of color, they are relatively similar to the setting natural of the Hero11. I actually like that, since the colors on the Action 3 look a bit exaggerated and unrealistic. The highlights in particular are no longer as bright on the Action 4 and are thus somewhat better protected. Compared to the Hero11, the image of the Action 4 usually looks noticeably darker. This is especially true when it is very bright. The shadows and midtones in particular are displayed much brighter on the Hero11. Another special thing about the Hero11 is that the shots have a lot of clarity. This leads to a relatively aggressive look, and smaller shadows in the face are strongly emphasized. On the Hero11, you have the choice between the color profiles natural and vibrant, where vibrant mainly has more saturation. Personally, I like the shots of the Action 4 better than those of the Action 3. Whether they look better than those of the GoPro is a matter of taste. I give 2 points to the Action 4 and the Hero11, 1 to the Action 3. The Action 4 also improved slightly in dynamic range. Compared to the Action 3, details in the dark areas of the image are now better preserved. While there is hardly any difference in the transition between bright and dark, you can see in the very bright areas of the image, for example here with the clouds in the background, that the highlights are also better protected than on the Action 3. This also applies to the comparison with the Hero11. The Action 4 protects the highlights a bit better than the Hero11, but the difference is small. I can hardly notice a difference in the dark parts of the image. However, the Hero11 manages the transition between bright and dark a bit faster than the Action 4. Overall, it's a tie for me. 2 points for the Action 4 and the Hero11, 1 for the Action 3. If you want to improve the dynamic range or edit the colors of your shots, you should use a flat color profile. And fortunately, DJI has changed the flat color profile on its Action camera. Instead of D-Cine-like, the Action 4 now has D-Log-M. While D-Cine-like was hardly usable on the Action 3, D-Log-M is a very good color profile. It has much less contrast and the highlights are very well protected. Also better than in the case of flat on the Hero11. Flat also has significantly more saturation than D-Log-M. For me, that's 2 points for the Action 4, 1 for the Hero11. The maximum resolution on the Action 3 and Action 4 is 4K. The Hero11 offers a slightly higher resolution with 5.3K, and especially when zoomed in, you can see the difference. The image of the Hero11 shows more details. On the other hand, when comparing the Action 4 with the Action 3, no improvement can be seen. The Action 4's image does not have more detail than that of the Action 3. The larger sensor does not seem to help here. 2 points for the GoPro, 1 for the 2 cameras from DJI. The Action 3 has a clear compression problem for me. If the image contains a lot of small details, such as small leaves, then the shot looks blurry and sometimes muddy in certain areas of the image. A clear shortcoming in terms of image quality. Fortunately, this does not apply to the Action 4. The shots always look sharp and rich in detail. You'll have to trust me on this one, as there are additional compression artifacts on YouTube. The Hero11 also has very few issues with compression. Therefore, 2 points for the Hero11 and the Action 4, 1 for the Action 3. When it comes to slow motion, all 3 cameras are capable of shooting in 4K at 120 frames per second. The footage looks good in all 3 cases, though a bit worse than at a low frame rate. On the GoPro, the resolution of 4K generally looks visibly worse than the highest resolution of 5.3K. The Hero11 is also capable of recording in 2.7K at 240 frames per second. However, the image quality is not particularly good. For 240 frames per second, you have to reduce the resolution to 1080 on the Action 3 and Action 4. But there is hardly any difference in quality compared to the GoPro's 2.7K. In the slow motion category, all three cameras score 1 point. DJI advertises the Action 4 in particular with its larger sensor and its advantages in low light. And I would like to state right away, the Action 4 is also not a camera that is particularly well suited for low light situations. Which is no surprise. After all, the sensor has gotten bigger, but it's still relatively small. Nevertheless, it can be said that the results are clearly better compared to the Action 3. The shots of the Action 4 have significantly less image noise. A comparison with the Hero11 is difficult, since the Hero11 brightens the image a lot in low light and intentionally uses a low shutter speed. This makes the image look a bit better, but the electronic image stabilization is disabled. The Action 4 stabilizes the image better than the GoPro, even in the default settings in low light. In addition, you can still assign a priority to the image stabilization on the Action 4. Then the image looks a little worse, but the image stabilization is improved again. The Action 4 also has a setting to improve the image quality in low light. This additionally sharpens the shots at high ISO values. Overall, I clearly like the Action 4's low light shots better than those of the GoPro. Especially when it gets very dark, the GoPro can no longer keep up. Here I set exposure manually, set the ISO to 1600 and then brighten the image a bit. The Action 4's image looks surprisingly good, while the GoPro's shot falls apart in terms of color. 2 points for the Action 4, 1 each for the GoPro and the Action 3. The Action 4 has received a few new features. There's a new feature for improving image quality in low light, and also brand new is that you can now adjust the sharpness and the amount of noise reduction yourself. Especially the adjustment and reduction of the sharpness is an important new feature. In addition, the pole or selfie stick on the Action 4 can now be removed from any shot, not just when skiing. This works quite well sometimes, but can't be compared to the invisible selfie stick effect of a 360 camera. In particular, the first models of the Action 3 had a clear focus problem. Subjects standing close to the camera appeared out of focus. Fortunately, I couldn't notice anything like that on the Action 4. On the GoPro, it's possible to change the field of view in the app after shooting, but that only works from wide to narrow. And you can also schedule shots. And then the GoPro has built-in GPS. The Action 4 still doesn't have that. To remedy this shortcoming, DJI has developed a wristband with remote control that records the GPS data of the shots. Not the best solution. After all, it's an accessory that has to be purchased separately. In my tests, all three cameras worked stably. For the additional features, the Action 4 and GoPro get 2 points, and the Action 3 gets 1 point. All three cameras have excellent image stabilization. When comparing the Action 3 and Action 4, I couldn't tell any difference, either in standard Rocksteady mode or Rocksteady Plus. Compared to the GoPro, however, the two cameras from DJI perform slightly better in my opinion. Especially when the movements get very intense, the GoPro can't quite keep up. This is true in standard mode as well as in Boost or Rocksteady Plus. 2 points for the Action 3 and 4, 1 for the Hero11.
It's not easy to build a fully waterproof camera and at the same time enable good audio quality. I think that all three cameras offer acceptable audio quality, whereby there are definitely differences. Also in the volume. Which camera sounds best to you? All three cameras have several microphones, also to get wind noise under control. So let's take a quick listen to how well that worked out.
It's hard to determine a clear winner here. The Action 3 is a bit quieter, but sounds similarly good. It has a little more problems with airflow than the Action 4. That's just not as noticeable because it's quieter. The voice sounds a bit fuller on the Hero11, but perhaps not as clear. I give the Hero11 and Action 4 2 points and the Action 3 1 point. A big strength of the Action 3, especially compared to the Hero11, was its long battery life. And the Action 3 remains the camera with the longest battery life. In 4K 30 it can record for 2 hours and 11 minutes. The Action 4 turns off after 1 hour and 53 minutes, and the Hero11 gives up after 1 hour and 20 minutes. To avoid overheating, a fan was used to simulate driving wind. That's 2 points for the Action 3, 1 point for the Action 4. And now comes the biggest surprise for me in this comparison: the result of the overheating test. Yes, I know, an overheating test can never be completely according to reality, and if you mainly take shots while biking or motorcycling, you won't have any problems for the most part. The Airstream will provide sufficient cooling. But if you're taking long shots during other activities, such as hiking or kayaking, or maybe if you're filming a basketball game, the situation is different. I did a comparison shot at 4K 30 here in the office at 26 degrees Celsius, and the Action 4 was the first camera to shut down, after only 23 minutes. The Hero11 lasted 31 minutes, and the Action 3 had no problems with overheating at all in this situation. It ran until the battery ran out. In a test under extreme conditions in direct sun and 4K 60, the result was similar. The Action 4 was already too hot after 6 minutes. The GoPro lasted 10 minutes, and the Action 3 was able to shoot for 17 minutes. 2 points for the Action 3, 1 for the GoPro. Price doesn't make a camera better or worse, but it can be important when deciding what to buy. The Action 3 is the least expensive of the 3 cameras at $329. The Action 4 costs $399 and the Hero11 is now available for $349. You'll find links to current offers for all 3 cameras in the video description. That's 2 points for the Action 3 and 1 point for the Hero11. And with that, the new Action 4 wins this comparison test. The new sensor offers visibly better image quality, and many other advantages like the mount or the touch front display make the Action 4 a clearly better camera than the Hero11, if there wasn't a problem with overheating. If this is important to you, you should rather go for the Action 3. If GPS is critical to you, then it will be the Hero11 for better or worse. How long the Action 4's lead will last remains to be seen, as a new GoPro will be released very soon. There will of course also be a comparison with the new GoPro on this channel. So stay tuned and give me a like as feedback if the video was interesting for you, and see you next time.